grocery store in Dundrum. And so to start racing anything, the only option for me was stock car racing in Santry. I mean, we didn't have racing schools back then. I didn't know anything about go-karts. So stock car racing, crash, bash, fix, crash, bash, repeat, became the option. And I truly believe to this day that I learned driving skills in Santry Stadium that I use for the rest of my life.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go there. If Mondello wasn't on, my dad used to bring me there, you know. And Larry Byrne supported you. I remember Dad used to buy used car parts off him when he was fixing my mum's car at home. And he used to find him in the pub across the road, and he'd have a pint and a half a pint, and the cigarettes open and a load of change, and the barman would just take the change for the next pint and give it to him. That was like his office, wasn't it?
And that was his office, and he was a great man, a great supporter, particularly of the Dundrum fellas, and there was a lot of us at that time. And Larry made his workshops available, supported us in any way possible, came to racetracks, started fights, all the normal Irish stuff that went on. But there are so many great stories of the eras that we all came up through in our quest to make it in big-time motor racing.
Fantastic. And do you remember your first race at Mondello Park?
I do. I remember my fifth race even better, because in my fifth race in Eddie Jordan's Lotus 61, there was some sort of a schmozzle between Eddie Jordan and Jim Sherry, I believe his name was, going off the start line. They both hit each other. I ran into Eddie, hopped over the top of him, ended up out in front, in the lead, and won the race, my fifth ever Formula Ford race.
No way.
Right here, yeah.
And Formula Ford was competitive back then, properly.
Formula Ford was the king for young drivers in Ireland and England and Scotland. You went to Formula Ford to cut your teeth, to learn your skill, to learn what racing is about. And it was, I would say, reasonably affordable, because we didn't come from money. Most of the people I knew didn't come from money. But it was reasonably affordable to start your racing career.
Is there a little bit of a parallel with Alex Dunne? Because I know Noel and I know Elizabeth, and Alex Dunne did not come from money.
So my Alex Dunne story starts way before Alex Dunne was born. Alex Dunne's granddad, Matt Dunne, raced with me in Santry Stadium, in Santry stock cars.
Did he?
So I knew the family from his grandfather all those years ago. And I knew Noel. I didn't know Noel that well, but I knew him because of Formula Ford. He was a name. He could win. He was competitive. And then I met Alex for the first time here at Mondello when he was 12 years old. I did a driver development seminar, if you remember.
Yes.
You were here.
Yeah.
Just to see if I had any information that I could pass on to the next generation. And Alex Dunne was a very small 12-year-old fella who took a photograph in the Guinness March that we had here that day. It was owned by an American, John Campion, who's from Cork. And, maybe he began to dream that day too. Yeah. He was already on the road because his dad had him well positioned to learn.
Yeah.
Learn. There are skills you need to learn. There are mental skills you need to understand. You need to crash, bash, the good days, the bad days, and his dad positioned him well to go through that learning period. And now he's right on the verge of Formula One.
Maybe he read your book. I know you gave him a copy of Race to Win that day, didn't you?
I did, and that was a book I published about 7 or 8 years ago, because my oldest son, some of you may know, Connor Daly, races in America. I see we have a few fans over here of Connor Daly. Yay!
Come on, guys, Connor Daly.
So when Connor came through the ranks in junior racing in America, he was quite successful and made it to the Indy 500. I had moms and dads ask me, well, how does my son or my daughter do it? Because you have all the skills, you know all the people, you know what it takes. And that sparked a little interest in me to maybe I should take the time to write a book about what I believe the skills you need to develop, just in case you got the phone call from McLaren or from Ferrari or from whoever. What skills would you have to learn in the coming years for you to get the phone call? And so that became a passion. and we did a driver development seminar here. Alex did get a book. I have no idea whether he read it.
We'll check his bag when he arrives. He might still have it there for
exactly.
I think I'm just going to check with the TV guys. Are we ready to go? Just give me 1 second, Derek. Okay, we're live, ladies and gents. Give us a big cheer. We're live at the Mondello Park Carole Nash Historic Festival. We'll see it live. You're all going to be famous. I've just been chatting to Derek Daly there. Alex Dunne is in the house. Oh no, we've peaked too early. Everybody come up here. Alex, sit down there. Great to have you at Mondello Park. Derek, you have a chat with Alex for a second there.
Okay. Hello everyone, how are you?
So, I just told them that when I met you when you were 12 years of age, a little small fella over here in one of the suites, and I did a driver development seminar, but I don't think anybody here, or even maybe you, could have dreamt that day that a couple of years later you would be so good, so successful, so highly regarded within the Formula One paddock, and to be potentially right on the cusp of Formula One. Come on, do you pinch yourself?
You know, I think if you told 12-year-old me that I'm going to be where I am today, he definitely wouldn't have believed you. And, you know, I think a good showing of that, you know, if you look at FP1 this year in Austria, for example.
Did anybody see FP1 in Austria?
Yeah, you know, I think, let alone, even if you take away the fact that there's an opportunity of being an F1 driver, I think the sole opportunity of just getting to drive the car in FP1 with McLaren in front of all the fans and stuff, I think for me already as a young kid, that's already a dream come true. So we've come a long way, and we're knocking on the door of it, but it's been a pretty special journey so far.
Did anybody hear his radio message at the end of that session when he said, "You just made a young kid's dream come true"? Anybody hear that message? So, Formula 2. Do you think you might get another penalty because you're at Mondello? What is going on? I mean, have they got a target on your back? Is this the way they teach young drivers to give them penalties like this? What's going on here?
Look, I think at the end of the day, rules are rules, and everybody has to follow the same set of rules. You know, whether you get penalised less or more than others, you know, there's still a set amount of rules that you have to follow, and if you don't follow them yourself, then that's your own fault. I think for me, the most important thing is that every time I've been penalised, I've been the one who's winning, and you know, winning is always the most important thing.
So for a young driver, there are certain skill sets that get measured. Obviously, one is, can you go fast? But I think the skill set that you showed everybody this year was in Monaco, in qualifying. Because you had one lap right at the end of qualifying, and you went out, and I don't know whether you surprised yourself, but it was a magic lap. That was a defining moment of your season, was it not?
You know, I think putting it on pole in Monaco is probably one of the.
No, keep going.
I think putting it on pole in Monaco is probably one of the most amazing things you're ever going to achieve in motorsport. So I think, you know, for me that was a very, very special day. I think as a driver, putting a lap together under pressure right at the end of qualifying is something that I've always been relatively strong at. So I think for me, in the moment, it didn't feel like anything in particular, and you know, it was fairly normal for me. I always felt like that's been a strong point of mine as a driver. But you know, I think that feeling when I knew that I was on pole at Monaco, I think for me that was pretty amazing, to be honest.
And I was actually there. I got to enjoy watching it and seeing the celebration afterwards.
Derek, I'm just going to cut in for a second because, surprise, surprise, we've got two extra guests. Ladies and gentlemen, Ralph Furman, former Jordan Formula One driver, if you would step up. And David Coulthard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave them up to chat with Alex here, but just want to acknowledge the Bahrain family are here. Thank you so much for everything. We would not be here today on a number of different levels if it weren't for the wonderful Bahrain family. So give them a round of applause, please. It's always great to have you guys here. Well, off you go, guys. Have a chat with Alex Dunne.
Okay, David, you're the professional. You now lead us from here.
Well, no, I've read your book, so I learnt from the professional. And is it weird that I read your book when I was in the toilet? Does that connect us in a different way?
Are you there a long time?
Did somebody leave it there? That's how you found it? Because you're a Scottish guy, you wouldn't buy it.
No, I was given it, but anyway, it's a great read and I learnt a lot. So thank you very much for that. And thanks everyone that's here today to give a warm welcome. This is my first time here at Mondello Park, which I'm still kind of scratching my head to understand why, because I think I've been to nearly every racetrack around the world, and I drove over. I took the boat from Stranraer to Belfast and drove down yesterday because we're an hour away from here with my entire family because it's my dad's 80th. So we had a few Guinness last night, I'm not going to lie, and we're going to have a few more later, but it's a thrill to be here at this racetrack, and it's absolutely fantastic to have the opportunity to wear the past and to look at the future, and what a great future Alex has ahead of him. And you were just talking there about you know, the laps that count, and we can all relate to that. One lap can make the difference between a career and not a career, and you've had many, many laps that have put you very much front and center. And it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when, in my mind, you get the opportunity. So you can share it with your friends here. When will we know what team you're driving for in Formula One?
I think at the minute my guess is probably as good as everyone else's. I think, to be honest, at the moment I'm not really sure. I wish I knew a little bit more. I think for me, I've always said to myself that I think the most important thing is to focus on F2. And I've always said that I think to give myself the best opportunity at being an F1 driver, the way I'm going to do that is by winning F2. And I think that's the goal. You know, I think I can say that there is going to be maybe 1 or 2 more FP1s coming up in the year. And I think they're a good opportunity to show that I should be in F1. But I think of when I'm going to have a race seat yet, I don't know.
Ralph, over to you.
Well, also I'd like to, it's nice to see everyone here, and thank you to the Bahrain family for everything. Well, yes, congratulations on everything you've done as well, and obviously we're here to celebrate Eddie as well, and remember what amazing things he did, and he obviously gave me the opportunity to race in Formula One and give me a chance of fulfilling a dream, which is great. And you know, we have to think about him, and also thoughts towards the Bahrain family today. But hopefully it's going to be a joyous occasion, and seeing some F1 cars go around later, I understand as well.
Yeah, actually, was it you that had one of the biggest shunts in a Jordan I think I've ever seen in Budapest, or was it your teammate?
It was me.
It was you?
Yeah.
And what was it? You managed to make the rear wing fall off?
I did, yeah. I think going so fast. Yeah,
I had one of the biggest shunts, I thought you were going to say.
Yes.
Monaco 1980. Anybody remember Monaco 1980?
Is that Saint Devote?
Saint Devote, first corner, and believe it or not, as long ago as that was, this year, Sky Sports F1 still use the video footage of my accident at Monaco. Candy washing machines are still being sold because of me.
Yeah. And talk us through that. Why did you crash at the first corner? I used to wait until about halfway around the lap. But what actually happened? Was it a coming together with someone else, and was it your fault, basically?
No, it was not my fault. Actually, I remember that accident in millisecond segments as if it happened last week. We've all had incidents where you get such a focus, the world slows down and you remember it so clearly. But I remember the accident, I remember how it happened, I remember the end of it. But the funny thing was, when I jumped out of my car, by the way, I went from 12th to 5th, but I had no wheels left. When I jumped out of my car to run across, to jump over the guardrail, my teammate, who I also took out, Jean-Pierre Jarrier, had already grabbed Giacomelli by the scruff of the neck, and he was tearing strips off him, blaming him for the accident. And I thought, I might get away with this. And of course, then we realized slow-mo cameras were everywhere in Monaco. It was my fault. It was a momentous occasion. I didn't do it too often after that, but it became a famous piece of video, and I still remember it today.
Yeah, look, absolutely incredible footage. And the era that we raced was pretty analog, let's say. For Alex, it's, these cars are so digital. They're designed and CFD, they've got 1,000 horsepower, you've got all sorts of different modes to play around with. Can you put us in the cockpit and explain, is it like just being on a computer game supercharged, the speed, the acceleration? I've never experienced that. We had good old-fashioned V8s and V10s, and I never raced with turbos, and I certainly never had hybrid. So the acceleration must be incredible.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things to think about when driving an F1 car. I think when I first jumped in and did my first test, I was pretty amazed at the amount of things you can change and look at and do, not even during a run, almost during a lap as well. I think, for example, during my FP1 in Austria, through my push laps, for turn 3 and turn 4, I was opening and closing the diff and then changing the brake bias and kind of manipulating what the balance is doing just from little toggles on the steering wheel. So there's a lot of things you can do that, not only change the modes and give the team more data for whatever they're looking at in the garage, but then there's also various different setup items on the steering wheel that you can then change to manipulate the car to help you as a driver as well.
I mean, I think the other thing that's changed as well is when we were racing, we had instant data from the teammate, but now you have instant data from all the drivers. And it's amazing that you can just come into the pits and they say, well, you're losing to this manufacturer or this driver here in each corner. And it seems to be instant, which is amazingly helpful from a driver's point of view to be able to get up to speed, and the team's point of view as well to see where you're losing and gaining, which is another big change I've seen over the last 20 years. It's actually unbelievable, the data information that's presented now out from Formula One. It's incredible.
So in Austria, we all followed it. We all saw the aero measuring devices that were on your car, and you did out, in, out, in, out, in the whole time. Did you know that McLaren were going to turn you loose and give you a chance to really let it rip towards the end of the session? I mean, was that discussed before you got into the car?
So the actual plan for the session was never to have, not necessarily the opportunity, but we never planned to go out and set a representative lap time, let's say. And I think if you look at the run plan, and when we debriefed after, the fact that I was able to do a good lap time was pretty crazy, because I think usually in Austria you'll do out push on a set of new soft tires, and after that then they'll degrade and you won't have the same performance anymore. And I think I did my lap on lap 4 or 5 of the same set of tires, and we hadn't really planned to do a proper push lap, so I think that was more impressive than anything else, the fact that there was still enough performance left in it. But no, it was never really the goal of the session, to be honest. It was just I had a couple of push laps consecutively, and I just pushed as hard as I could, pretty much.
Did you feel, given what you've just explained there, did you finish that and think, God, if I just had pushed a wee bit more here, was there that sense of I could have done more?
Definitely. I would say I don't even think I wasn't that close to the limit, to be honest. Especially in the high-speed corners, there was still a lot of margin. I wasn't using the full. Oh, you're right. I wasn't using the full width of the track everywhere. There was a couple of things in terms of driving that I wasn't quite maximizing. At the end of my push lap as well, I got dirty air from Russell. So no, there's definitely things to find, and I think obviously it helps with how strong McLaren is as well. I think the car is obviously very good, and that helps a lot as a driver. But I felt very comfortable straight away. I think I've always said that, to be honest, I think as a rookie driver jumping into F1, getting there or thereabouts is probably not as hard as you would think. At least that's how I found it. I think it's the last little bit is the really difficult part to find. But I think getting there or thereabouts for me was relatively easy.
Well, that sums up my career. I found it really difficult all the time. And then I realized I couldn't get that last little bit. So, yeah.
But do you realize what he just said? He didn't use all the racetrack. There was a bit more. He knows there was a bit more. He finished 0.07 of a second slower than Piastri, who's now leading the World Championship. And all because of Mondello Park. Hey,
I won't let you all go just yet, but I need to swing it back to the fact that we're all madly in love with Alex Dunne. But tomorrow, we're going to be talking in great depth about Martin Bourrain and what he's done and how the reason we're here and the reason we have the track and everything. But today is a celebration of Eddie Jordan, and an incredible man who hustled his way from this paddock to Formula One and caused a lot of laughs along the way and did a lot of deals along the way. And we've all heard the stories about him selling smoked salmon and carpet offcuts on Grafton Street and then arriving up to the Step Inn on a Friday night counting the money with a big dicky bow. And it's just some man for a deal. So I just want to have a quick word about Eddie. And David, you're closest to me, but you're probably closest to him as well. Your podcast was just unbelievable. Was he as wild as he came across on that podcast?
Yeah, look, anyone who's met Eddie over the years know that even when he'd made it, he still had that DNA of wanting to fight for every last little penny on the table. So the podcast and working with him in television was all through a production company that I have a shareholding in. So I very quickly realized I didn't want to be involved in any of the negotiations with Eddie over how much he was going to get paid. It was going to, sap away my heartbeats that I've got left in my life. But, he was a freak of nature. And, anyone who was close to him would know that he could be incredibly frustrating, stroke annoying, you just wanted to give him a good shake. But then on the other side, I love the man because he could be so kind and he could be so caring and giving of advice. And I loved his thing about he was always saying, always make sure you leave a little bit of money on the table for the next man. He never left any money on the table. But he's seen someone do it once, and he loved to share these words of wisdom. But look, I like many people, of course, and I saw Marie earlier. We miss him every day because there's something every day that will remind you of him. But yeah, an incredible character and an incredible example of what this country has. It has resilience, it has work ethic, it has not take no for an answer. It has all of the qualities that are necessary to become world class. And that's why you have had many, many examples, men and women in sport and in business across the board that are world class. And, Eddie would be particularly vocal in supporting Alex as well in his journey and making sure that he gets the opportunity to show his class.
David, interesting that you said about how kind he was, because it's usually jovial stories and funny stories and deals, but I spoke to Dan and Joy Daly, who were an integral part of Mondello Park. I'm sure they're here somewhere yesterday. And Joy produced this, and in 1976, Eddie came over to her in the paddock here. Eddie owned Marlborough Team Ireland. I remember as a kid queuing up, they had stickers and ladies giving out cigarettes, and they all had race suits when not everybody wore race suits, but they're very professional. And they were in the family way. So this says in Eddie's handwriting, "Congratulations, Joy, on the new arrival. Hope the cot will get plenty of use." And he had gone round and done a whip around with the other drivers and paid for a Moses basket for the child, which is absolutely wonderful. They've all signed it. And what a lovely thing to do. And, no deals, no shystering, anything like that. So a great guy, and that was so cool. And the fact that Joy found it during the week was really, really cool. So absolutely fantastic. And he signed it there.
I don't want to speak ill of Eddie, but I suspect he was given that basket, then charged the other drivers, and then gave it over as a gift.
I have no comment. Ralph, what about your negotiations with Eddie when you were getting the drive? Was it Bernie Ecclestone? Was it his way or no way?
No. Well, obviously, Eddie, what he achieved was amazing because he was probably the last privateer individual to build up a race team and then come through the ranks and then launch an F1 team, which I don't think might not ever see that again with someone with no serious backing. So it's very impressive. But no, when I met Eddie actually we're in a Quicksilver store in St. Bart's. We were buying some swimming trunks and bumped into him, and then he was arriving on his boat, and we arranged to have dinner that night and started having a chat and put a deal together. But I actually drove him back to his boat, and I remember driving the van, I reversed into a wall, And I said to him, I'm better going forward than backwards. So yeah, that's how we managed to do that. So just a chance. I just won the racing championship in Japan, but it was just a chance meeting as well, and just worked out quite well.
A massive Irish connection for your family, because your mother Angie's from Kildare, not too far from here, and then of course Ralph. I mean, every Irish driver lived with him, worked for him, drove for him, he fed them. Yeah. It works Van Diemen drives, where a lot of Irish drivers got in the door. He did really, really good stuff for Irish drivers.
Yeah, I mean, actually, my mum's from Newbridge up the road, and my mum and dad actually met here in the bar.
I thought it was a Newbridge accent you had there, yeah.
Well, yeah. It's a plastic one, but they met in the bar here. Yeah, long time ago now, but
fantastic, yeah.
That was that. So, yeah, I still have roots here, and we used to come over here a lot and see Granny when she was alive, but...
Brilliant.
Yeah,
well, great to have you here. Derek, you got to drive a Jordan Formula 1 car?
I did. Can I ask Ralph a question? Was it you that used stories? I think one of the best lines of the night was by David Kennedy, who's over here, by the way, over here. Say a round of applause for David Kennedy. But David had one of the best lines of the night last night. He said Eddie Jordan was a guy who could rent rooms in houses that he didn't even own. That was as far out as he would go. But David introduced me to Eddie Jordan when I wanted to buy a Formula Ford car. And he had a Lotus 61 that he raced here at Mondello. I went over the use of an Alden engine, which is a performance company in England. I never saw the... All those years later that we laughed and joked about it, he made a point of when I was working a lot in American television, and we were doing documentaries, and I wanted to do a documentary about driving a Formula 1 car. And we wanted to drive the Jordan. When I called Eddie, I said, "You owe me." He says, "I know, let's do it. This is the final payback." And it's okay that he did it, but I think for me, it highlights that Eddie's deals, as interesting, as creative as they were win-win deals. They weren't win-lose deals. Win-win always brought people back together. And although he might have screwed me a little bit on the deal overall, it was a win-win for me because I got my career started with him, and we had laughs for years and years and years afterwards. And it's sad that he's not here today, but he's left such an indelible impression that has brought us all together here today. So a great man, a great man.
Thanks, Derek. Lovely comments there. And I must say, David, your words were terrific. No, sit down. You're the main man. Your words were terrific, talking about the history of Irish motorsport and people that have come forward. And I think you found all the words. But I'm going to add one word to that Eddie had, and it was chutzpah. Eddie had a neck like nothing else on this planet, and it really helped him push his way forward. I remember doing a deal with Eddie. He was going to tow me up in a race car to Northern Ireland, and I would pay for the petrol. And at the end of the day, not only did I pay for the petrol, he wanted the interest on the money for the petrol. So he understood that money wasn't just something you bought things with, but that you could make money with money. And none of us really had the skills to fully understand that. And Ralph, it's fantastic that you had that time driving for Eddie Jordan. We were covering the program with RTE, and it was such an exciting time. And your driving was really right on the ragged edge. And it was lovely to see that full circle had come around, that Eddie could have an Irish driver in the Jordan car. And Derek, your experience with Eddie too was much the same as I. You know, you really had to keep your hand on your wallet and two eyes on the back of your head. And when you mentioned about renting a property, Eddie, I rented a room from Eddie Jordan when I was living in Silverstone. And I went away for a weekend, and I came back and I found the room that he didn't own, which he had rented to me, he already even sublet it. And I found a big German mechanic sleeping in my bed. Now, I only kissed him once, but that was the kind of thing that, Eddie, you just have to have your wits about you. And it's fantastic that it's come full circle again today that we have Alex Dunne here. And Alex, just let me put a little bit of perspective. I have got 6 drivers that have driven for us currently in Formula One, including Charles Leclerc. And we had the great good pleasure of putting Alex in the car in Macau. And the template that we saw was the best we'd seen in about 12 years. So not only is Alex going to be a Formula One driver, but honestly, I think you're looking at a future world champion here. And I think even more important than that, I know the family a million years from motorsport, and his dad works every hour on the planet to find the money and to give his son the opportunity. It's not that he's just a quick driver. It's not just that he has the raw speed, but he is a lovely guy, and that's what counts.
Well said.
In fact, just to take on one last point that you lads took who study Formula One really intensely, when you ran that car in Austria, I'm not sure many people saw that your segment times in the fast section were quicker than anyone else. And that is enormously significant. And for us who live in the margins looking for raw speed, that is really exceptional. For the first time to put your backside in an F1 car, to go faster than Piastri in the difficult corners was truly outstanding.
Okay, ladies and gents, we probably have to wrap this up, although I'd happily stay here all day. I'd rather be sitting there than up here. This is fantastic stuff. Alex, it's just so cool to have you here at Mondello Park. We're massive fans. In the office, Monday mornings, big discussions. That's all we talk about is Alex Dunne. Mondello do support Alex, and the Brain family also support Alex, so it gives us a little bit of involvement. You feel you're involved when you're supporting somebody, and I know you've got some great sponsors. It's just wonderful to see all these McLaren hats and T-shirts and everything here. What about this young girl? Lift up that flag with a picture of Alex on it. There you go, Alex. That's fantastic. Give her a round of applause. So, just to explain what happened, because I know it went the wrong way a little bit with the autograph sessions. We didn't want Alex to be standing around from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock, so we said we'd do slots for that. That's what happened, and they just disappeared off the website. But as you can see, he can't really escape now. I'm not going to throw him into the crowd, but no, I spoke to Noel, to his dad, during the week, and Alex is around all day, and he's here tomorrow, and I'm sure it'll be a busy day for you, Alex, but you can feel the love and the support here, and we're absolutely loving it. In fact, look at this young kid here. He's absolutely fantastic, isn't he? He's been taking photos of you the whole time. I mean, to have an Irish driver climbing up through the ranks is brilliant, but we're only a small country. We've only got a small population. And when we've had drivers before, very, very few of them have got to Formula One, and we always supported them so much. But I would echo what David says. I think I get a bit of feedback. I think not only is Alex Formula One material, he does look like he's, on certain days, and you guys have all seen this, that he's head and shoulders above the rest, and you don't see that too often. The wet race in Spa, the aerial footage, pulling 2 lengths through Eau Rouge. When do you ever see that? Like, it's just, it's very, very exciting. And to have him here today is absolutely brilliant. And to have you guys and girls here supporting him is brilliant as well. So fantastic. Give Alex another massive round of applause. David, thank you very much. David Coulthard, it's wonderful to have you here. We weren't expecting to have you here, so thank you so much. Ralph Furman, local man almost, thank you so much. Look at Derek Daly taking a selfie. That's when you know you've made it, when Derek Daly's taking a selfie with you. And one more time, what a driver. Alex Dunne, ladies and gents. Fantastic, great stuff. We've got to go racing now, but Alex is around. Say hello if you want.